everyone, welcome to Mark's Finance and Fitness. Today's video is going to focus on something a little different. Before we get to that though, I have the mascot sitting on my lap. So she's here to help us discuss Bitcoin. I finally bought into Bitcoin. I've been following for about a year now. I've had some friends get into Bitcoin. Our mascot just leaped out of here. And so what I want to discuss is why I bought into Bitcoin, what Bitcoin is, and where I think its future is headed. Like I said, it took a while. I wanted to research it. I wanted to be comfortable before I bought in. And I was finally able to do that about a week and a half ago. I started buying into Bitcoin. I have a very small position, and I'll try to grow that a little bit over time. But let's first talk about what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, also considered a coin, and it's simply a token with a value agreed upon by a community of users. And this value of this coin can fluctuate based on perceived value, outside commercial and societal pressures, and rarity. So I want you to think of it like gold. It's like digital gold. There's only a certain amount of it, and the value can fluctuate based on, the demand for it. And so with Bitcoin, there are only 21 million coins out there in existence. And right now, 18.7 million have been mined. You'll probably want to Google separately how mining is and what that process is, but there's users that actually mine these and get the coin themselves. And then we, as the public, can go on certain exchanges and buy it. I use an app called Exodus, and I can do a separate video if you guys would like on how to use Exodus and my thoughts on it. So the ownership of Bitcoin is protected by cryptographic systems, and there is a ledger of transactions. Every transaction of Bitcoin ever made goes on this ledger, and it's distributed out rather than centralized. So it's considered a decentralized system. Unlike, there's a centralized bank, this is decentralized. You can see all the transactions and they distribute that out to everyone, that ledger. So let's kind of put this in a different perspective to help maybe understand better, because it helped me. Let's say you live in your neighborhood. And let's say in this neighborhood, there's a pile of gravel, a unique rare gravel. And let's say one day, John goes to Sarah with one piece of gravel and says, "Hey, can I buy the butter that you have in your fridge off of you, and I'll give you this one piece of gravel?" And let's say she accepts, and there's a transaction that was made, okay? And so now they go and they tell the whole community, the whole neighborhood, he bought one tub of butter with one gravel. So that is what the value is at that time. So one gravel could buy you one tub of butter. And they tell the whole community, so the whole community knows. And that way, if an outsider comes in and says, "Hey, that is my piece of gravel," everyone could say, "No, it was exchanged between these two, one rock for one tub of butter." And so that's how it's kind of protected, is by the community. So if someone comes in and tries to say that they own my Bitcoin, just got to go to the ledger and it would say, "Nope, this was the transaction, he owns it." So that's kind of a way to kind of put this in a perspective of how the system kind of works. It's the community that decides the value. And so if someone else comes along and they, then the community now deems that 2 pieces of gravel equal butter, that's the new value. And again, it's protected by the community. The community is kept in communication, and that's where this ledger comes in, right? It's distributed out to everyone, so everyone can see and agree with these transactions and the values and everything like that. And so that's kind of Bitcoin at a high level. And so another thing to keep in mind is when you buy Bitcoin, and let's say you can send Bitcoin to someone else. There are 2 things that you need to keep in mind that's important for security reasons. There's what's called a public key and a private key. So the public key is what kind of is involved with that ledger. Those are the transactions that everyone can see. And the private key is something that you hold that is your claim to that Bitcoin that you own. As long as you have that private key, you own that Bitcoin. If someone else steals that private key, they can claim that Bitcoin, and there's really not much you can do at that point. So with Exodus and most, I think all, exchanges that you can buy this on, is a set of 12 words in a certain order that you have to keep, under lock and key. You don't want to take a picture of it. You don't want to put it in your computer. You really do want to write it down and lock it up, put it somewhere very safe and secure, because that is your access to your Bitcoin to say, I own this. So let's say you downloaded Exodus, what I use, and your phone dies and you get a new phone, you re-download the app, it's going to ask you for your private key. As long as you have that private key and you enter that in, it's going to pop up your Bitcoin. So that's what allows you to say, I am the owner. If anyone else ever gets that private key, then you're going to have a problem on your hands. Or if you forget your private key. So you really want to come up with a good strategy on how you're going to keep that private key private. And so, with a public key, you can send someone Bitcoin and send them this public key, and that public key allows, the transaction to be shown on the ledger. So a Bitcoin address is really just a public key. And so, that's kind of the gist of how, buying Bitcoin, holding it, you can send it to other people or between platforms. Say you have Exodus and then you have Coinbase and you want to move it over to Coinbase for some reason. You have to know those public and private keys and make sure you write them down, because you don't want to forget them, because then you might lose that Bitcoin. You have that public key and your private key to get that Bitcoin and make sure it's sent and received. So with that said, why did I buy into Bitcoin? Well, I think for a long time I was kind of on the sidelines and not sure exactly that, I was comfortable with buying Bitcoin. It's very volatile and there's reasons for that. But what I see is also an opportunity. There's an opportunity here to get into an asset that's unique and different and that has gained a lot of steam over the past couple years. And I don't see that steam slowing down, because there's been a lot of talk lately about Bitcoin being included in hedge funds, ETFs. There's been countries that have made it legal tender, right? Like El Salvador. I think there's one other country that recently has talked about doing it. And so the more that Bitcoin is recognized, the more legitimate it's going to get, the higher the price of that coin is going to be, especially the more the people buy into it. Right now, the general public is not buying Bitcoin. If that were to happen, the price of Bitcoin is going to soar. Also, once it gets introduced into ETFs, hedge funds, all that stuff, the price is going to soar. So right now, I feel there's an opportunity to get in before Bitcoin could potentially be something huge. Really a currency that is used by the world. And so why not dip my toes in that, right? I am not putting a large portion in. I am not by any means making it a huge, part of my portfolio, but I say, why not take that opportunity where I see it's going and be a part of that and make some money there and have a different, diversified asset to my portfolio. So I am dripping in money, kind of weekly. I don't have much, and I'll probably reveal eventually some more about my Bitcoin, but I just want to get more educated and involved before I start sharing more information on it, as far as my own personal portfolio of my Bitcoin. But just know that I really do feel this is an opportunity now before Bitcoin potentially goes, out to the general public buying it and these, big funds putting it into their portfolios. Also, there's been, I think, one 401k company that is putting it into their, portfolio for 401ks for other people. So, I just see that Bitcoin is, though it's at, 30, it's hovering in the low 30,000s right now. Its peak was 62,000, I believe. And so I thought with this dip, it's a good time to get in. And I think there will be acceptance of it. And eventually it will be, bought and held in a lot of different areas. And so the price will go up. There's estimates that Bitcoin itself will be by, within the next 2 years, be between $90 and $150,000 a coin. Right now it's in the low 30,000s per coin. And so I just felt, if you make it maybe 2% of your portfolio, I think that's a healthy uh, addition to your portfolio. It's not putting too much risk on, Bitcoin that is still volatile. It still has a ways to go before it's legitimate in the sense that, it's being included in a lot more things, which is going to make it a more stable investment. Um, and with all the people that have been buying into it, it does put pressure on these funds to include it, right? And so that's why funds are starting to talk about that now. That's why that 401k is including it. And so I feel there's this huge, movement that's going to happen over the next 2 years, and now's the time to start getting into that. Um, and so that's the reason why I bought in. I've had friends push me to get into Bitcoin as far as a year ago, but I've been patient and I wanted to make sure I was comfortable with it before I get into it. And you need to do the same. Don't just go off of this video, do your own research, but definitely listen to my side of it and understand that I think it is worth, maybe a 2% position in your portfolio. Some people are going as heavy as 50%, but I think that is too risky at this point. And if things start rolling, if they start getting into more funds and the general public starts buying it more, I might make it 5% possibly before I feel it goes up even more. So with that said, that is my case on Bitcoin, why I started buying it. I'm going to add just a little bit each paycheck. And I really think long term, I'll be grateful that I got into it now before it starts, showing up and popping up everywhere. And if it doesn't do well, then it's 2% of my portfolio. And but I don't see how it cannot really succeed and move forward at this point with having all these funds talking about it and countries starting to want to, make it the legal tender in their countries. And so I think I'm willing to take a position in it and see what happens, and hopefully it can make me some decent gains in the long term. And with that said, it's been a few weeks since I made a video. I'm going to try to do them a little bit more often. I said I would do a fitness video, so I will be getting into that. And so I look forward to seeing you guys next time on Mark's Finance and Fitness. And be sure to look out for Nala in future videos. I think I'll have her do a little fun cameo in my next fitness video. And you guys have a great day.